So today would like to talk about the census, the 2020 census. And the news of the coronavirus pandemic has eclipsed the news of the census, which is taking place at this very moment. Since mid-March, households all over the country have been receiving invitations in the mail to participate, to complete the census, and they have until August 14 to do so. And this deadline has been expanded precisely because of the coronavirus pandemic. So once you receive the invitation, you can select one person in your household to complete it. And you have three options. You can complete it by phone, by regular mail, or online. If you choose to do online and phone response, you can do it in 13 different languages. So if you speak English, Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, Polish, French, Haitian, Creole, Portuguese, and Japanese, then you can complete in your very own language of origin over the phone or online. And when you do so, make sure to include in your response all residents of your home as of April 1st of this year. So whoever is living in your home as of April 1st should be included in the count. So how does it work? As I mentioned, you should have received these invitations, and we have. We received our invitation here at the Abbey, and we've already sort of started the process to complete that information for all of us who are staying here. For those of you in your home, you will receive the invitation in the mail. Two rapidly following one another, and then there'll be a gap waiting for you to respond. And then if you don't respond, you will receive 3 additional reminders. So if after the 3 reminders you still don't complete it, particularly by early May, then a census taker will come knocking at the door and attempt to collect the information. Now, as I said, the deadline or the timeline for the census was expanded as a result of the pandemic, and I wanted to give you an idea of how that's going to be progressing between now and August 14, which is the actual last day. And so you can also have an idea of the different groups that will be included and the scope of the undertaking. So in addition to receiving the invitation in the mail, 5 million households between March 29 and May 1st will get an invitation dropped off at their door by a census taker. That's 5 million households. That's within a considerably shortened amount of time between the end of March and the beginning of May. So really not much time. So that's a vast undertaking. And the Census Bureau will also assist people at grocery stores and community centers between April 13 and August 14. And so you can go to those locations and they will help you to do it online if you have difficulties doing it from home. Those who don't respond by May 1st, by the beginning of May, will receive also a visit by the census takers between May 7th and August 14, and so they will attempt to collect that information at that time. And there will also be an attempt to get the information from people who are living outdoors or who are living in group settings, such as dorms, campgrounds, parks, people who are living in homeless shelters, people who are living in nursing homes, prisons, etc. So it's really a very comprehensive effort to make sure everyone is counted. So why is the census important? And why should you participate? Once every 10 years, the Constitution of the United States calls for a count of every person living not only in the continental US, but also in the 5 territories. And what are those territories? They are American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So people in those territories also will be counted. And all residents are required by law to participate. You do not need to be a U.S. citizen. So those who are non-U.S. citizens are also counted. And the census really is the foundation of many important governmental policies and decisions that affect the well-being of families and communities. Those decisions include, for example, the number of congressional seats, funding for key public services such as health, education, infrastructure, and also for drawing certain districts like school districts, voting districts. And then, in addition, both public and private sectors use the data to decide where they're going to place services, such as schools, healthcare facilities, childcare and senior centers, factories, and the like. So knowing who lives where is a determinant of who and where certain services are located, even grocery stores. So as a result of the census and as a result of the families and everyone's direct participation, then certain services are located right close to where people live in their own communities. Providing this type of access is incredibly important because it means that you don't have to travel far to get what you need when you need it. There's been some concern about whether or not the information is confidential. And so in the research that I did looking at the governmental sources of information, it is very clear that the information provided to the census takers and provided in the forms, whether it's online or by phone or even or mail, that information is confidential by law. It's required to be handled in a very specific way and not shared with different governmental agencies, not even law enforcement. So the Census Bureau can only aggregate that information and provide statistical information, no names, no identifiable information. Those who participate are to remain anonymous. So according to the Census Bureau, every employee takes an oath to protect the personal information that they handle in the course of their duties. In addition, there's also the assurance that the answers will not affect eligibility for governmental benefits, so that there is that level of protection. Violation of those rules and regulations pertaining to confidentiality may result in prison sentence as well as, and or a fine up to $250,000. Now, what are the questions on the census form? And these are questions that really pertain to how many people live in a certain address, their name, age, gender, date of birth, telephone number, ethnicity, race, and also what type of familiar relationship exists between the residents of that particular household. And I really want to emphasize that the census does not include a question about citizenship. You're not asked about your citizenship status in this country. So that's an additional level of protection. Now, any undertaking such as this could result in fraud. People could come to your house or call you or seek information online fraudulently, pretending to be from the Census Bureau. So it's very important that people be aware, that respondents be aware that there are certain questions that will not be asked by any Census Bureau staff or census taker when they come to your house or on the phone or via email. Those questions are Social Security number. No one is going to ask you that. Bank account or credit card number. Again, no one will ask you that. Whether they will not require to ask you to make any donations or require you to give them money of any kind. And they also will not ask you to endorse a political party or certain proposed legislation. So these are red flags when someone at your door via phone or online is asking you for these questions and pretending to be a member of the Census Bureau or a census taker. Please know that that is a scam, a fraudulent interaction. So do not respond, do not give the information, and then contact your local authorities immediately to report. So participating in the census is important, and it provides a lot of benefits for families and communities as a whole. So please do your best to respond and participate, and yeah.
So Venerable Jigme is filling out ours, and at one point she contacted me because she didn't know what to put down for me. So apparently there's no listing for people who are mixed races.
Mhm.
And even among white, she said there were a whole list of countries of origin, what, from your ancestors a long time ago? But all these subdivisions, especially, you know, yeah. Why?
So there are services that both public and private services that require that information, sometimes for staffing levels. So if you want to hire people that represent the community that you're working in or that you are serving, then the Census Bureau will give you information as to how to apportion that. I know for Child Protective Services, for example, in order to determine equality and to determine, how could you call that, parity in staffing levels mirroring the community that you're serving, we would refer to the Census Bureau and see, okay, well, in this community that we're serving, 15% of the residents are Latino. Do we have a proportionally equal staffing pattern in our office, in our bureau? Yeah, so I'm going to take a guess because the census information is also used for all kinds of health statistics, for all kinds of prevention initiatives, for all kinds of epidemiological studies. You compare what you're finding versus what the census found. And sometimes these questions of ethnic origin can help researchers and others figure out, okay, what kinds of things, propensities, or things are present in a community.
That really isn't ethnicity, especially when people have been, mixed together for hundreds of years.
I don't know.
So, and with Latino, I don't think did they put, from Honduras and Colombia and Peru. They did all those different countries.
Yes, they do. And some of the things have to do also, I think, with how how tight people hold to their identity, like their national identity, for example. For Latinos, it is true that the culture of someone from, let's say, Central America or Mexico or Central America or South America, those cultures are very different. Even within South America, for example, someone from Brazil's, their culture is completely different from someone from Colombia. So by kind of identifying where those pockets are, it's also true that some of these populations sort of congregate in kind of communities. And so by identifying where there may be a stronghold or certain cultural and national communities, then you can identify how to approach and serve and provide services. That's kind of all I can say to that.
So in terms of other information, like people's jobs and income levels, that also would be important for providing services. Is that just like the Bureau, the IRS already has that, or the Bureau of Labor already has that stuff?
I would assume
different
there are
organizations.
other, they did say in this particular website that there are other, questionnaires and efforts to gather information. I would assume that that type of information can be drawn from the Labor Department, and so not necessarily from this. And there's a total of 10 questions, I think 10 or 12 questions that are asked, and for every person who lives in that particular residence, they ask for name, age, date of birth, gender, and so forth. So, yeah, that's kind of how it is put together. It says that it's not shared with other agencies. But that by law they are required not to share individual specific name-linked information. It's just general statistical information. And as I said, apparently their employees take an oath about not sharing that information and holding it strictly confidential. And my experience, because I know when we're doing programming where I was for social services and for healthcare providers, I mean, we refer to the census, go to our local community or the community that we were planning to serve and really look at that carefully. We would look at certainly income was one of the things that we would look at, in addition to age, ethnicity, gender. So all of those were important markers to determine how we would craft the service and what specifically and who would serve that population. Thank you.